To be honest, I'm concerned about the proposal to help facilitate the distribution of reparations. Economists consultants from the task force reported the total amount could be as much as 800 billion. 800 billion. That's 2.5 times the size of our entire state budget. To pay for that, you'd need a major tax hike, unlike anything this state has ever seen before. I recognize and acknowledge the painful part of our history. The pains of our past should not be paid by the people of today. The majority of our state is Latino and Asian, making up 55% of our population. Most of them, like me, are first, second, or third generation immigrants who had nothing to do with slavery, discrimination, Jim Crow laws. Nothing.
Okay, so this is Kate Sanchez. Yesterday, I did a show with regards to how our country is being infiltrated with foreigners, right? Particularly since 1965, the Immigration Act of 1965. The Immigration Act of 1965, how consistently we have been infiltrated under this whole idea that we have nonprofit organizations organizing protests, wanting us to be a socialist country when that is not in the framework or the found I mean, or the framework or the foundations of what this country was built on, right? And I spoke about Miss Kate Sanchez with regards to her understanding that the reason why she has a title even in this country today as I guess in the state assembly, she's out the 71st district, which I believe is Orange County, or excuse me, Santa Margarita. So here she is with a title, right, that she's been voted in. And the primary benefits to her being in this position stems from the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act was initiated based on the fact that black Americans were facing poll tax, harassment, literacy tests, amongst so many other things, and intimidation. With regards to wanting to be a part of the process, the systematic process of the writings of this country, which is a social contract amongst us all, United States citizen. It is our unity together that we have a binding understanding of our conduct, our culture, and in the ways that we are developing in this country towards the future in our independent nation. The thing about the May Day protests, a lot of times what you will find is that they want us to become a socialist organization, and a lot of this is being funded by foreign organizations with regards to these NGOs. So I decided, okay, let me get an understanding of this Mexican American who's benefited from the Voting Rights Act in itself. Let's go to the bill and see what does she necessarily have a problem with. Because, like I said, reparations does not have to be funded from taxpayer dollars. And my thing is it just hate? Is it primary hate, or what is it necessarily that would bring this type of idea that you want to be the only person that does not want to see black Americans receive reparations? So the first thought as we look into now, the first thought is that this bill has been initiated way before, well, I want to say way before May Day, way before the protest started, before Donald Trump took office, right? It started before Donald Trump took office, before all this understanding that black Americans did not want to be a participant in a protest against ICE for ICE doing its job. So let's get that understanding. Because my thing is it just primary hatred, or is it racism? Racism for this show I want to identify as something that is wanting to thwart the economic benefit of a certain demographic. Hate, you can define it for yourself. I want you to leave your response in the comments at the end of this show or as you're going through this show. But at the moment, I want to go ahead and read through this bill a little bit that she, primarily wants to object to and oppose. So this Senate bill was written by Mr. Bradford, Senator Bradford, and I believe that may be the gentleman right there, Senator Bradford, right? Let's get into this. I tried to download this so I can blow it up a little bit. Let me see something. Yeah, I tried to download this so I can blow it up a little bit. However, I ain't got time to find a document right now, right? Because I'm just trying to get this part of the show over with. And excuse me for that, but this is a spotlight. This is a spotlight on Kate Sanchez. Okay, so the previous existing law established until July 1st, 2023, the task force to study the development of reparations proposal for African Americans with a special consideration for African Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. Previously existing law required the task force to, among other things, identify, compel, and synthesize the relevant corpus of evidence, documentations of the institution of slavery that existed within the United States and the colonies that became the United States as specified, and to recommend appropriate remedies in consideration of the task force findings as specified. Previously existing law required the task force to submit written reports of its findings and recommendations to the legislature as specified. This bill would establish funds for reparations and reparative justice in the state treasury for the purpose of funding policies approved by the legislature and the governor that addresses the harm that the state of California has caused the descendants of an African American chattel enslaved persons or the descendants of free persons living in the United States prior to the end of the 19th century. This bill would authorize the funds to receive the bill would authorize the funds to receive money from any other federal, state, or local grants, or remember I said it doesn't have to come from out of taxpayer dollars, or from any private donations or grants as specified. The bill would also make related findings and declarations. Considering grants at the moment, because it doesn't have to come from grants either, right? But considering grants at the moment, I'll be scared for it to come out of grants because why? We have a problem with these NGOs right now and what the Democratic Party has been found to do a lot of times, especially with these NGOs, are they're taking grant money that the state or the federal government is delivering to them. These nonprofit or these NGOs is returning the funds back into these politicians' pockets so that they can run specific campaigns or endorse specific campaigns or so they can endorse themselves in being a part of political office. Okay, like I said, Miss Kate right here, she's a person that seemingly does not know that she has benefited from the Voting Rights Act, as the Voting Rights Act was specifically to address Black Americans not having the ability to vote, not having the ability to be a part and participate in the development of the written system in the state of California, in the United States, as they have been in this country for so long. Black Americans are considered the most native people of the United States of America because they can go nowhere else. They have nowhere else to go. They do not know where they come from. So their complete existence resides and rests within the United States of America, just based on the fact that their whole entire culture, after being left, after being taken from Africa, resides here in the United States. So the Black American is considered to be the most native person in this country. And this bill goes into the fact that it is for the role that the state of California has played in the systematic policies and practice and discrimination against living African Americans across its system and governments at a local and a state level. And this is what I was reading right now with section 3, out of chapter 6.1, which is right here. The funds for reparations and reparative justice, section 6630 of the legislature finds and declares all of the following. Right. So what I just read was subsection A right here. I'm gonna read it again real quick because I want to get an understanding of why she would want to deny black Americans with the ability to receive reparations when she's, first of all, her and Hispanic Americans and Asian Americans have benefited off the black Americans' fight to be a part of the system in the first place. And it's through that it has been diluted to a point that we have Miss Kate and her grandma, who has been given a title, been voted into their position to represent their people, I guess you would say. Because I guess this Hispanic community will primarily be her primary constituency, and she has gotten a lot of Hispanic of the Hispanic population into office just like herself. So Section 8, as California begins the process of addressing the state role in accommodating and facilitating slavery as documented in the California Reparations Report and sources cited therein, perpetuating the vestige of enslavement, propagating state sanctions, discriminations, and facilitating persistent, systematic policies and practices discriminating against living African Americans across its system of government at a local and a state level. Section B, as a result of this historic and continued discrimination, this was not just for the people who were enslaved, but this were for the descendants of those people enslaved, the continuance of this type of discrimination. As a result of this historic and continuous discrimination, African Americans in California, especially those whose lineage can be traced to an enslaved persons, continue to suffer economic, education, and health hardships that have prevented them as a people from achieving equality. So in order to maintain slavery, government actors adopted white supremacy beliefs and passed laws to create a racial hierarchy and control enslaved and free African Americans. After the end of slavery, although the federal Constitution recognized African Americans as citizens on paper, the government failed to give them full rights of citizenship and failed to protect them from widespread terror and violence. Thus, why we had to have the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Thus, why we had to have the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Because of what black Americans were going through, which she benefits from. But it is a continuation of the systematic practices, the culture that was in America with regards to white supremacy, which they are asserting in this document, in which black Americans should be receiving reparations from as a reparative justice for all the harm that has been done, not just during slave times. So after the end of slavery, although the federal constitution recognized African Americans as citizens, on paper the government failed to give them a full rights of citizenship and failed to protect them from widespread terror and violence. Along with along with a dereliction of the United States' duty to protect its African American citizens. Direct state and local governments' actions in California to continue to enforce the racist laws created to justify slavery. These acts, these state laws and government-supported cultural beliefs have since formed the foundations of innumerable modern laws, policies, and practices across the state and nation. Even after the abolishment of slavery, its badge and incidence remains embedded in the political, legal, health, financial, educational, cultural, environmental, social, and economic system in the United States of America, and the state of California continues racist, untrue, and harmful stereotypes created to support slavery continue to physically and mentally harm African Americans today. Without a remedy specifically targeted to dismantle our country racist policies and practices and heal the injury inflicted by colonial state and American government, the badge and incidence of slavery will continue to harm African Americans in almost all aspects of American life. So, the legislature recognize and accept responsibility for all of the harm and atrocities committed by representatives of the state who prompted, facilitated, enforced, permitted the institution of chattel slavery and its legacy of ongoing badge and incidence of slavery that forms the systematic structure of discrimination. So, do you guys see anything from the reading of this that would necessarily make Kate want to be a proponent for this bill? After she has benefited from the Voting Rights Act of 1965, she and her grandmother, that being in Texas, in Kansas, and she followed in her grandmother's footsteps and is now in Santa Margarita, a county or a city in the state of California. In the state assembly to deny these truths. Because from the reading of this, it's asserting that black Americans are still going through this systematic racism. As of 2024, this is before Donald Trump took office. So is it a cultural thing for Hispanic Americans not to want to see the economic advancement of black Americans as she is an assembly person with her constituency? I will believe to be not only Hispanic but Asians as well because of her remarks. So you guys take a moment and leave me a note in the comments. Do you think it's racism? Do you think it's this hatred? What would make her want to deny this bill? In terms of the reparations, I want to get on the point that the grant funds is a scary thing because once this grant money is being given, we have to keep close watch of it and make sure that it doesn't go back into the system, as some of these politicians want to double dip into nonprofit organizations for their political benefits, whether it's to run for a campaign or push some type of political agenda that it necessarily should actually do what it's meant to do. That's the only thing I can see with regards to this bill that is kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work. But there is other ways besides it coming out of taxpayer dollars, and besides for it to be received through grant funding. This is something that has to be watched. Nothing has actually taken place yet with regards to any Black Americans receiving funds from this bill. However, if they would wish to bring me in, I would definitely let them know how they can do it. Tiny Cross-H.U.G on the Trumped Up Live Show, man. Always remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel. It's a good day to be a soldier.
They said transformation was impossible. Faith, facts, and fire. Tiny Cross-H.U.G style.